Liftoff.
Hey everybody, welcome to Weekend Confirmed Question of the Week. I'm Garnett Lee. Hope you'll get your questions into us on Twitter or on Facebook. That would be at Weekend Confirmed, no E at the end, and then the Weekend Confirmed Facebook page. Just like at Final Maxstorm did, who asks, after Lost Odyssey, watching Xenoblade, and playing the last story, which by the way I haven't played Last Story yet, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I'm going to finish Lost Story first. What changes would you like in JRPGs? Great question. Obviously, we've been talking for a long time about this divide between the sort of Eastern approach to making very story-driven, very character-driven, high melodrama, high fantasy, all that kind of stuff, versus what we think of as the archetype of a Western RPG, which has really become the Bethesda game, whether it be a Fallout or an Oblivion. So as far as Japanese role-playing games, what are some of the changes I'd like to see after playing Lost Odyssey, which, keep in mind, is a 4-year-old game. And Xenoblade and Last Story, which are both Wii games, so you know I hesitate to get pulled into the whole like interface and graphics area there. Well, I do want to talk about graphics though for a little bit, because you know one of the things about Lost Odyssey is that it was an original Unreal Engine game, and you could see a lot of the struggles there. And so one thing I'd really like to see in a Japanese role-playing game going forward is really embracing the technology. I mean embracing the technology to the degree that the BioWare team does with Mass Effect. I mean, if there's one thing you can say about Mass Effect, it's that through each of the 3 versions, also on Unreal Engine, that it has just gotten better and better looking, and man, it just like, by the time that thing wraps up, it looks fantastic. Granted, there are scenes where they probably, you know, gotten so grandiose in the amount of space they're trying to portray that they have some places where you could nitpick on it. But on the whole, they just have a really good ability to convey a very compelling game space. And I mean, okay, that sounds like kind of horse crap. Like they just make it look cool, right? They, you know, you get in there, they got good weapons, you got the weapons coming off your armor, you've got Grunt who looks cool. Like just the whole package goes together really well. And I think that the other thing is that in role-playing games, because they're not action games, I'd really like to see animators really pushing the envelope as far as getting good natural body animation. You know, that's like, we don't really need to see characters that look wooden anymore. We've got performance capture technology. If we can see that in, you know, the Naughty Dog games, and I think there's some other games that use it, none of them are popping to mind right now. I believe Tomb Raider's using some performance capture. So if we could see more of that in role-playing games, obviously it's all about character portrayal and really pulling me into the story pieces. So I'd really like to see those pieces of technology incorporated into Japanese role-playing games. I love that they're embracing action combat. I think though that I don't want to see it go completely down an action combat route. I like to see some of the blending. You know, one of the things I'm really enjoying in Lost Odyssey is the ring system, which uses a timed trigger depression and release to coincide with a ring on the screen, so you have like a timed attack piece, and that's cool. That works out great. I still like the tactical idea of using all of my party skills and abilities, because one of the big pieces of a role-playing game is managing your characters. And you put all this time into figuring out like what equipment I'm going to put on them, and what sort of skill tree am I going to do, and how am I going to have all of these characters come together. Like, which one of my healers do I want in? And do I want a healer that also has an off attack? Or do I want to put in a buffer? And what kind of attack guys do I want to have? And if you're thinking about all those things, then just reducing it to me running up in the front and hacking with a sword and having AI to run all those guys is cool for one sort of game. I think that I prefer to also have a game where I'm thinking through all those pieces, much like what you used to do in Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2. I mean, that was the beauty of those games. And I'd like to go back to that game, that series in particular, to get my last point, which is that I'd really like to see a evolution of the linear game of a Japanese role-playing game, but not turning into a giant Western game. And I think one of the things that the Baldur's Gate games really nailed was that every experience, everything that happened along the way felt like it was a hand-built encounter. And you had this really like great sense of what I'm doing here is not just a formula being applied to some monsters and then being spawned in and dropped and coming against you. Everything felt like, here's an environment, here's why the monsters are coming in where they're coming in from, or the people you're being attacked by, here's why a trap works in the environment that it's in, and it just had this really great sense of every encounter having some power and meaning to it. I don't want to like be running down corridors anymore and looking at my mini map and just following the 2 little white lines to see where I'm going next. That's not really that fun. But I don't want to be just, oh, here's a big world, okay, go run around, because you know that becomes so open. That's a different sort of game. Not begrudging it. I'm just saying it's a different sort of game. I want to have a guided, in my Japanese role-playing game, I want to have a guided experience, really great handcrafted environments, and excellent use of technology to tell those imaginative and creative stories. Wow, I had a lot to say about that. What do you know? Who know? There you go. All right, guys, thanks. I hope you'll join us for the show. Watch the Shack News Daily every day of the week with myself and Ryan hosting throughout the week. And that's it. We'll talk to you next week.
I don't think it's problematic. Then for some more experienced game players out there. Now, I think what his question is really asking is, do we need a girlfriend mode? And I think that this mode is actually something that's really good. There's a lot of people that I know that have maybe never done a first-person shooter before and really want to learn how to play, but have never taken the time to